Welcome to the 2022 Coffee Break Debates hosted by the Waseca High School American Government and Political Science classes. Today we are pleased to welcome the candidates for Waseca County Attorney. Hello, I am Lindsay Kopetsky, a senior here at Waseca High School. I will be the moderator for today's Coffee Break Debate for the candidates running for Waseca County Attorney. Today we welcome Ms. Rachel Cornelius and Ms. Brenda Miller. Each candidate will give a 2-minute opening statement followed by questions submitted by the students. Our debate will conclude with a brief closing statement from each of our guests. We will now begin the county attorney debate with opening statements from each candidate. Ms. Cornelius?
Thank you. Thank you to the Waseca School for hosting these coffee break debates and for encouraging students to get more involved in understanding government and politics. My name is Rachel Cornelius. I am the Waseca County Attorney. I am married to Dennis, and we have 2 kids, Janae and Jacob. I went to college at Southwest State in Marshall, and that's where I met my husband. I majored in political science and Spanish, and I always figured if this whole lawyer gig didn't work out that I could at least have a future in politics, although I never really expected that my career would be dominated, that I had to be in politics in order to have my job. I went to William Mitchell College of Law, and I graduated in 2002. I passed the bar that year, so therefore I've been an attorney for 20 years. As your Waseca County Attorney, I've worked hard to rebuild the office, increase the retention rate, and improve the work satisfaction that each employee feels. One of the many ways that we've improved our office is with technology. Our office used to have a very old, outdated system for case management that we would use to charge out files, things like that. Our new system is not only state of the art, but it didn't cost us any more money, so there was that benefit. It did make me wonder, however, why our office didn't have that technology before, because we did have it available to us. This technology allows us to improve our ability to work from home or anywhere more efficiently, especially in this new post-COVID world. Speaking of COVID, as your county attorney, we continue to work throughout all of COVID. We were very devoted in still continuing education in the schools. One of the things that we did was I traveled all the high schools in Waseca County, so Waseca, New Richland, Janesville, including the ALC, and I talked to them about social media and legal awareness. I did this because I thought it was important for students to know and be informed so that hopefully they not become a victim or a criminal. So, thank you.
Ms. Miller?
Thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Hanson and everyone else involved in setting up these debates. It's a very good means of letting younger people know that you should embrace your right to be involved in voting and all that entails. Personally about me, my name is Brenda Miller, if you don't know me. My family moved to Waseca when I was in 1st grade. My parents, Sam and Carla Jabarian, built the bowling alley in town, the Village Bowl and Playmate Lounge. I have 5 siblings, and we go boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. Jeff, Tammy, John, Pam, Jay, and then myself. I am married to my husband, Craig, for 29 years now. We have 2 children, William and Thomas. All 4 of us graduated from Waseca High School. I won't tell you what year I graduated with Craig. We were actually in the same class. But our sons, William and Thomas, graduated in 2016 and 2018. We currently live on our farm in rural Waseca County, and thank you, you gave me a little bit of a respite from combining corn today. So that is what I will be doing when I'm done here and tomorrow, until we're done, I should say.
We will now begin our questions. Question 1. What aspects of your education and previous job experience make you the most qualified person to be Waseca County Attorney? Ms. Miller?
I graduated high school in Waseca. I went to Mankato State University under their paralegal program, so I had a major in political science and a minor in law enforcement. I then went to Hamline University School of Law, where I obtained my JD. My first job as a practicing attorney was with the 5th Judicial District Public Defender's Office. I was an assistant public defender. I handled all of the gross misdemeanor and felony criminal defense cases in the county of Watonwan. I also managed the public defender's investigative branch. So there are 15 counties in the 5th Judicial District, and anytime a public defender wanted a criminal case investigated, they would call me. If we had interns, I would assign the interns, monitor their performance, make sure that everything that the attorneys wanted was done. I did a lot of the investigations myself. We were housed in Mankato, or officed, so we got a lot of Mankato State University students. So that helped us get a little bit of free labor. It helped them finish the requirements for their 4-year degree. I think having that public defender experience really makes me uniquely qualified to make charging decisions. When I get police reports, I review them with an eye of a defense attorney. What is a defense attorney going to contest? Are there any weaknesses? Do we need to shore up any of these types of areas? I've also been in the Waseca County Attorney's Office for 27 years. I was an assistant for 14, chief deputy for 7, and county attorney for 4. So I have the most experience. I've been a practicing attorney for 31 years. So again, I have the longest experience. And when I was in the county attorney's office, I typically had the largest caseload.
Ms. Cornelius?
As I stated in my opening, I went to college at Southwest State in Marshall, majored in political science and Spanish, and minored in sociology. I went from there to law school at William Mitchell College of Law, completed my degree, and went right within law school. When you go to law school, you can get done in 3 years or you can get done in 4 years, depending on if you want to be in the full-time program or the part-time program. I went full-time and part-time. The reason I say that is because for my first year and a half, I did full-time. My second year and a half, I went part-time, but I worked full-time. So I started gaining experience right away while I was in law school. I worked at the Ramsey County Attorney's Office, and that was valuable because I got to spend day in, day out, managing my own cases. We did everything on our own. The attorneys that were there were basically there as assistants if you needed any help, but we did all of our own casework there. And in Ramsey County, it's so succinct because it's such a huge county that I only worked in the juvenile delinquency unit. So then I got a lot of good information on how to work in juvenile delinquency. From there, I worked for LeSueur County for a year doing child protection and some of the lower level crimes. And then I came to the Waseca County Attorney's Office in 2006, and I've been there ever since. I've been prosecuting all the crimes that are out there, for everything from petty misdemeanors up to attempted murder. Drive-by shooting, of course, has been the newest, latest, and greatest that we've been charging recently. And then, of course, everyone knows the attempted murder was Officer Matson and the other officers, Officer Schrader and Officer Heron, that were the other officers that were shot at that night. That's all I have at this time. My time's expired.
Question 2. Are there any improvements you would like to see to the county board support in the county attorney's office? Ms. Cornelius?
Our office is really well supported by the county board. I have a good working relationship with the county board. I would say that if there was any other supports, it wouldn't so much be to our office, but in conjunction with the work that we do. Body-worn cameras are something that we need in Waseca County. Pretty much all of our nearby counties have body-worn cameras. It would be important to have that. It's good for discovery and for documentation of crimes. Everyone I know who has body-worn cameras and other agencies talks about the value of it. The other thing that would be helpful is if we had more funds to go towards another drug task force agent in our county. Drugs are rampant, and while we do have one agent on the drug task force, I think Waseca County could definitely support 2 if we had more funds and more ability to put another investigator onto the drug task force. Thank you.
Ms. Miller?
The area that I believe that the board could help the county attorney's office expand and provide greater service is retention of employees, and that's very difficult when you're in government. because we have the comparable worth. So we have this pay scale, and it's a range, and everyone who's on the same range gets the same salary. So anytime you talk about raising salaries, it's not just an effect on your office, it's an effect on county employees across the board. So I know it's difficult, and as a taxpayer, I feel the sting when sometimes you get your property tax statement and you're like, whoa. But in order to provide service, we have to pay for that service. And you get what you pay for. When I started as county attorney, we had the lowest starting salary of the county attorneys in the state of Minnesota. I'm proud to say that we were able to raise that. When I left, we were not the lowest starting salary. But I think the area now that we need to improve on is the top end. We top out at a lower salary than the state public defenders. So the attorneys that we're practicing against are earning more than our assistants, which makes it difficult to keep them. So we have assistants that start, get a few years of experience, then go to the metro area where they're earning $10,000, $14,000 more per year. So I know it's a difficult topic to bring up. It involves tax implications, but it's something that needs to be addressed if we want to reap the benefits of providing the tools and the education, training, and experience to the assistants so that we can keep them longer and reap those benefits.
Describe a challenging, question 3, sorry. Describe a challenging case in your legal career that caused you to grow professionally and has made you a more qualified county attorney because of that experience. Ms. Miller?
I almost hate to bring it up because every time you mention the case, it just brings up so many emotions, but I would have to say it would be the John Ledoux case. I grew as an attorney and as a prosecutor and as a county attorney because, well, technically I wasn't county attorney when it started. The media attention was so overwhelming. I was receiving calls from CNN to be on the news and be interviewed by them. This case made the newspapers in Europe. Someone saw it over in Egypt. So it was a very emotional case, and a lot of people that lived through it have experiences about that. I learned to deal, obviously, with different judges. They removed Larry Collins, who was the district court judge at that time. I believe we had 2 to 3 different judges then. They'd give us one judge. They gave us a retired judge, so that was just temporary. Then they gave us a judge who hit retirement, and then we got a 3rd judge. It was just me against 2 state public defenders who came down from the metro area. That's all they do, is handle high-profile cases for the public defender system, plus the local public defender. So it was me against 3 defense attorneys. So it really taught me how to deal with different types of personalities of defense attorneys, how to deal with the school, the law enforcement, the public, provide as much information we could, but not too much information so we would taint the case.
Ms. Cornelius?
A few years ago, I had a criminal sexual conduct case where the defendant had perpetrated on 2 children. Whenever you have children cases, you have a lot of emotions that come with that. So I'm dealing with talking to the victim's mother, and talking to the victims because they were old enough to talk to me about how they felt about the case, how they wanted to handle the case. Ultimately, we came to a plea agreement where the defendant would go to prison for 168 months. However, when we got to sentencing, the judge gave him a probationary sentence. And a probationary sentence means he's not going to prison. He's only getting credit for the time that he served in the local jail. So I appealed that to the Court of Appeals. Our office has historically not appealed very many cases. This was one that we needed to do. This was my first prosecutor appeal, where it means it came from me, not from a defendant, and I wasn't responding to it. I was the person bringing the appeal. So that was a case where I learned so much, because there's certain things you need to prove when you are going to have an appeal. You need to, you're talking about the law, not just feelings or emotions or anything like that. You have to look at all the different things you have to establish for the Court of Appeals. And what we did is made that appeal happen. I also reached out to another agency who helped write what's called an amicus brief. It's where they file a brief supporting your position. So that was really good to have that collaboration with another agency who specialized in sexual assault, helping sexual assault victims.
Question 4. What do you believe are the biggest criminal activities that you, law enforcement, and the residents of the county should be most concerned about? How will you work to minimize the negative impact of this illegal behavior? Ms. Cornelius?
The biggest issues right now are 100% drugs, chemical dependency, and mental health. I already work with law enforcement daily. I talk to the drug task force agents, work with them on what can we do? What can we do in Waseca County? What can we do more of? I consult with them on ideas of how can we pursue a certain avenue. I've received a lot of training on drugs, and I've trained at drug enforcement trainings too, for lawyers and cops, and it was a really good training where you learn a lot about how to look at drugs a different way and how can we approach those types of cases. So I work with the drug task force closely. With regards to mental health, that's a struggle for everyone these days. So we work very closely with Min Prairie, which is our county human services agency, to figure out, what can we do to work together to help these people? Can we get them into treatment? Do they need a commitment? Do they need a commitment? Means like where they're involuntarily put into a placement to get well again. If we can't do a commitment, what other things can we do? Can the court help us in any way? Are there motions that we can file to bring them to court to help? It's a very strenuous, ongoing matter. I work with law enforcement very closely on the mental health matters. They're constantly calling me about concerns that they have, and we try to work together the best we can to figure out what the situation is for that particular person.
Ms. Miller?
I agree with Ms. Cornelius that chemical dependency and mental health are very serious concerns that lead to a lot of type of criminal activity. That people who have undiagnosed mental health issues, it affects them, their family, their work. Are they out committing crimes to self-medicate? Then that leads into chemical dependency issues. There's another issue too, though, that has been affecting the county recently. I've heard from several residents that are concerned by the number of rural burglaries that have been occurring in Waseca County, and the concern that they're still ongoing, that when law enforcement catches them, they go to court, but then they're out back committing more burglaries. So those are concerns that need to be addressed. I believe the county has already started on different avenues to help address these issues. The drug court is one. That's where I really got a handle on mental health and the impacts it has. Typically, in years past, if someone had mental health issues and chemical dependency issues, they would address them separately. They do the chemical dependency first, then they do the mental health. Now they have a dual diagnosis program where they address them both at the same time. I had one defendant who was charged as a juvenile, as an adult, went to prison. I had no idea he had mental health issues till his grandmother approached me and said, "Hey, I think there might be mental health issues." He was looking at a mandatory prison term. Got the victims to okay, law enforcement to okay. we'd plead him, do a local probationary sentence, have him go to a dual recovery program. He hasn't committed a crime since. He's living a productive life. All those years he could have been doing that had we known mental health was an impact on his criminal activity.
Question 5. Besides the role of prosecution of criminal behavior, what other important roles should be a priority for the county attorney? Ms. Miller?
There are a lot of civil issues that people don't realize that the county attorney's office handles. Everything from okaying ballots to reviewing the bonds that the waste management people submit. You have to be and show attention to detail. There were times when I found, and I don't think there was anything nefarious about it, but I had companies that were attaching the wrong bond to their application. So you have to look at that. Another issue that the county is facing is planning and zoning. We do have a comprehensive zoning ordinance, but it still runs into the issues of a landowner has a use that they want to use their land for, but maybe the neighboring citizens don't like that use. So do you allow them to do it? Do you not? The county is in a unique position where you have to, if they fall within the parameters of the zoning, authorize their use. Well, then that makes some of the other residents not happy. You never have really two sides that are ever happy because there are two conflicting positions. So you try to let both parties know, hey, this is what we have to do by law, and you just have to go ahead and take it on the chin if they don't like it and are upset with you afterwards.
Ms. Cornelius?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Besides the role of prosecution of criminal behavior, what other important roles should be a priority for the county attorney?
While we have to do the things that Ms. Miller talked about, we have to review contracts and we have to assist with planning and zoning. We have to, in addition to reviewing ballots, we also have to address any ballot issues that come up. We have to be very versatile, whereas some counties, they specialize in areas, but at our county attorney's office, you have to really be very versatile in all the areas of law that you're working in. But you also have to be timely and efficient. I've had many department heads tell me how much they appreciate my quick response and attention because they weren't getting that before. So it's very important that the county attorney take their role very seriously and be very responsive to department heads because we're here as representatives of the county. We represent the county in lawsuits, and it's very important that we are addressing those types of matters very efficiently, because if we're not, it could put Waseca County at huge liability issues. Thank you.
Question 6. What qualities will you look for when hiring people in your office? Ms. Cornelius?
I have 3 fantastic assistant county attorneys, one of which is here right now. The other one's in court and the other one's on vacation. And I have 2 legal staff that are fantastic. There is nothing I would change about any of them. They are hardworking. They come and talk to me when they want any type of advice. They know it's not expected, but I would think that they think I'm approachable. We collaborate a lot together. We enjoy talking to each other. A lot of times we'll have lunches together just to talk over some cases and try to figure out. And we also socialize together outside of work because we enjoy each other's company. It's important to have a staff that you can work with, you can talk to, that you can have an open relationship and open communication with, because if you don't, it can create a lot of animosity in the office. And I think that you want attorneys and legal staff, so the legal assistants, who are people who feel that you can be approached, that they can also take criticism if there's any type of concerns, and that they're really looking out for what's in the best interest of Waseca County, the community, that they are looking at police reports, that they are making sure that all the elements are met. If there's a concern with a case, they're talking to me about it, or talking to the staffing as an office about, hey, what can we do differently? That's one of our best assets, I would say, is we get together and we say, hey, I've got this trouble on this case. What can we do to make it better? What can we do to go forward? Is there anything we can do to go forward differently? So we try to keep an open mind.
Ms. Miller?
Ultimately, when I interview for assistant county attorneys, I'm looking for someone who I feel could connect with a Waseca County jury. You have to know who your audience is, who the judges are, who the potential jurors are, and do I feel that they would be able to stand in front of a jury and have the jury believe what they are telling them. Obviously, that would include someone who is able to think on their feet. It's the nature of the game of being in court daily and having different types of hearings. You have to be able to respond to objections. So you have to have a wide knowledge base to begin with. So we help provide that. We give them trainings, we give them courses to go to, that type of thing. But ultimately, they have to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and to learn how they can best present their case, whether it's to a judge or to a jury. I look for someone who's a people person. Can they talk to people? Can they relate to people? Are they detail-oriented? We have deadlines and timelines, and we have to meet them. So you can't have someone who's, I'm sorry, but lazy. You know, they have to be proactive to make sure that they get their, I don't want to say assignments, but their work done in a timely manner, and that it's quality work. So essentially, a good work ethic. I'm very big on people with good work ethics, that you're there and you are willing to do the best that you can. I don't hold them to super high standards, but I expect them to give a good quality product in a timely manner and do what's best for the county.
Question 7. What are the key factors a county attorney should consider when deciding to plea bargain a case versus take the case to trial? Ms. Miller?
When I handled cases, I handled all of the juvenile felonies and half of the adult felonies. I found that it was best to keep everyone informed. So it's not required, but I would contact law enforcement. I would contact the victims, let them know what was happening. I'm very upfront with them. This is best case scenario. This is worst case scenario. When I look at whether or not to make a plea offer, I look at the defendant only for the fact of what did they do and what is their criminal history. Right? What can we do so that this person does not commit this type of crime again? So you look at that, you come up with hopefully something that works in the middle. If it's a case, though, that's not appropriate, you take it to trial. That's what we're paid for. We're paid to try cases, not to plead cases out. But the reality is that Waseca County, no county, could try every case that is brought. You have to have some type of plea negotiations. So again, I come up with a plea offer, run it by law enforcement, run it by victims. I can say in the 27 years, the only time I didn't have a victim, and it wasn't the victim, it was the victim's mother. I had one case where the victim's mother did not want a plea agreement made. Otherwise, every other case, the victims were okay once I explain all the legalese and the legal issues. And what's best, again, for the county? How can we stop this defendant from committing more crimes in the future and creating another victim?
Ms. Cornelius?
While we're not while we are paid to go to jury trial, we're also mostly paid to protect public safety. So what we do is we analyze a case, we look at the highs, the lows, what our cons are, what the pros are, what we need to do. We first consult with the victims. We're a very victim-centered entity. We have statutes that require us to talk to victims. So we talk to victims all the time throughout the case, not just one time at the beginning and call it good. We talk to them throughout. We also consult with law enforcement. We talk to them frequently about a case, especially if it's something where there needs to be more investigation. And sometimes, cases are declined to be charged because there just isn't enough evidence. Once a case is charged out, though, plea bargaining is part of the system. We take into account what a victim wants, what a victim says, what law enforcement says, and we balance it all. And then we talk to the victims again, and we go back and forth in that process. We do try cases. We've had a lot of jury trials since COVID because we had a period of time where we weren't allowed to have any jury trials. But for the most part, we enter into plea agreements because it helps save victims the pain of testifying, especially on like my sexual assault cases. They don't want to have to testify about what happened to them, and we try to respect that when we can. But protecting public safety is the number one, so we go to trial when we have to. We absolutely take into account what a victim says, and when victims say, I want to go to trial, we go to trial.
Question 8 will be our final question. Can you provide an example of a current law that you would like to see changed? In what ways can the county attorney advocate for that change? Ms. Cornelius?
Can I talk about the one I already changed? I can't think of another one right now I want to change, so I'm just going to talk about the one that we did change. So, as everyone knows, in 2020, Officer Mattson was shot, and then the other 2 officers were shot at. And the law didn't allow me very much ability to give the shooter, the defendant, the consequences I wanted to give him. The law was such that Officer Mattson was shot, gravely injured, and he obviously was not going to be able to return to work, okay? Then we had the officers who were shot at. So they're injured in other ways, okay? So they have other injuries from being part of a traumatic incident, okay? However, an officer is not able to return to work. His whole career is impacted. There had to be some type of change that needed to happen, okay? There obviously, the law was the same, whether you're shot at or you're actually shot. And so I think everyone can agree that that's something that's just, not right in the law. So Megan Mattson asked me, what can we do to change the law? And I said, well, we need to start talking to legislators, and we need to start advocating for change. And so that's what we did. It's one of those things, it's easy to say that you're going to change a law, but it's not actually easy to change the law. It took over a year of Zoom calls, phone calls, in-person testifying before the legislature. It was a long, arduous process, but I would redo it every day because it was something that had to be done, and proud of our accomplishment in getting it done, proud of the collaboration we had with law enforcement to help us get that, and with the legislators themselves to help us get the bill passed to change it.
Ms. Miller?
I would say we need to look at our attempt statute in the state of Minnesota. Right now, our attempt statutes requires a higher burden than the federal standard. Other states have the federal standard as well. So in the case of John Ledoux, our attempt statutes, when we charged him with attempted murder, were dismissed because it has to be more than mere preparation and planning. And that's what the Court of Appeals and the District Court said is, well, he was just in the preparation stage. Whereas on the federal level, theirs says the same thing, a substantial step toward more than mere preparation, but highly corroborative of intent. So if everybody's familiar with the Ledoux, he formulated and he detonated, I want to say 20 to 30 explosive devices in preparation. He bought ball bearings, was trying to buy crock pots. He was going to make crock pot bombs like they did in the Boston Marathon bombing. And he committed burglaries to steal firearms. He stole ammunition for firearms. He was acquiring his arsenal so he could kill more students at the school. And all of those steps was not enough, but in Colorado, under the federal definition that they use out there, a gal had a map of where a guard at the prison she was housed at lived. When she was released, she told people she was going to kill him. That was enough for attempted murder. So quite a big discrepancy. The problem with that is attempt applies to every criminal statute, every different subdivision of it. So you have to be able to get the legislators over that initial, yeah, it's going to cause a big fiscal impact.
We will now begin our closing statements. Ms. Miller?
I'd like to thank everyone again. It was nice to see not only students but members of the community come out and watch the debate. I hope people are going to watch it online. I just want everyone to know that if you want somebody who's ethical, who's had experience, who's knowledgeable, then you should vote for me on November 8th. Thanks.
Ms. Cornelius?
Thank you again to everyone who helped put this on. In 2018, I ran for county attorney because I needed to regain the trust that people had in our office, and I had to rebuild the fractured relationships with our office. Retention from money was not the issue. We developed supportive relationships with each other, and we have successful relationships with our business partners. During COVID, due to my management, we kept everyone safe, we kept working, but we were able to keep where we didn't have a criminal backlog like a lot of counties have. In 2006, when I was hired by County Attorney Paul Dressler, he made a joke to me about, well, you can't move the family farm, when I said I wanted to work in Waseca. He said it as a compliment to me because it meant that I wouldn't be leaving the area and that I would be staying at the Waseca County Attorney's Office. And the great news is I can do both. My husband can still farm, we can also live in Waseca, and that's exactly what we've done the last 4 years, is to accommodate both of our passions. What I want people to know is I love this job so much that I moved here for this job, and I'll continue to do this job ethically, justly, and honorably.
That concludes our debate for today. Thank you to our candidates for participating. Special thanks to Chuck Pollock and Jenny Pena for their time and talents, and to the City of Waseca for broadcasting all the debates during the weeks leading up to the election. Debates can also be viewed on the Waseca School District's homepage. Again, thank you for your support of Waseca High School Coffee Break Debates.